Okay, good morning, everybody in Suffolk County, New York. Good morning, everybody in Riverhead, New York at the Riverhead Free Library this morning. It is Tuesday, September 8th. Thank you very much for joining us for this one-hour webinar, Introduction to Foundation Directory Online. My name is Susan Shiroma. I am the Network Engagement Manager from Candid, and I will be your presenter today. Big shout out to Riverhead Free Library for hosting us this morning. Big shout out for Cher Armstrong, who is the Grants and Philanthropy Specialist. She's also the Digital Specialist at the Riverhead Free Library. And Cher is usually my main contact at the Riverhead Free Library for philanthropy resources. We have a moderator and presenter this morning. I would also like to give a big shout out to Andrea Hill, the Adult Information Services Outreach Librarian at Riverhead Free Library. Andrea is also making this class possible for you today. So thank you so much, Andrea. And again, my name is Susan Shiroma. I am the Network Engagement Manager for the Northeastern United States. I am representing Candid today, and I work out of our New York City headquarters. All right, Introduction to Foundation Directory Online. You are going to learn some very valuable tips today about fundraising resources at the Riverhead Free Library and fundraising resources that you can access from home. But first, let me introduce my organization, which is Candid. All right, so on February 1st, 2019, Foundation Center and GuideStar joined forces to become Candid, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Together, our organizations brought a combined 88 years of expertise and millions of data points to Candid. So we are in year 2 of our merger. Why Candid? What motivated us to serve you better by becoming one organization? Every year, millions of nonprofits spend trillions of dollars all around the world. Candid finds out where that money comes from, where it goes, and why it matters. How do we accomplish our mission? Which is, simply put, to get you the information you need to do good. We accomplish our mission through research, collaboration, and partnerships. So our work with the Riverhead Free Library is a terrific example of how we collaborate with over 400 libraries, community foundations, and nonprofit resource centers throughout the world to provide local communities with fundraising and philanthropy resources. So, research, collaboration, training. This is an example of a free training class brought to you today and hosted through Riverhead Free Library. Candid connects people who want to change the world to the resources they need to do it. And we have a vision. So, Candid, we envision a social sector that's capable of tackling the critical challenges and opportunities of your time. So this is really a good time to be doing good in the world today. And you have many options for doing good in the world. For those of you who are working out of Suffolk County in the Long Island region part of New York State, you have a wonderful library, the Riverhead Free Library, which Candid has been working with for many, many years to promote philanthropy and a conversation on the ground in Riverhead about access to resources. So the Riverhead Free Library is open for short 30-minute appointments these days. And, when times get better and we can actually get back into the library for longer periods of time, I'm going to encourage all of you to make a trip to Riverhead to use Foundation Directory Online Professional, which is our premier fundraising database. Candid also responds to global events. So I want to point out to you during this time of remote work for many of us in the United States and around the world, we do want to thank each of you for being part of Candid's learning community. We do recognize this is a challenging time for many people here in America and abroad. we have shifted all of our key learning opportunities to a virtual format since March of this year. And we invite you all to check them out, check out these virtual training opportunities, and definitely check us out. So I'm going to hold on this screen for a moment for you to pick up your cell phone camera and take a picture of the websites listed in front of you. We've also invested time and effort into providing the social sector with resources that you need to make informed decisions about today's most pressing issues. So we are operating in a COVID-19 environment these days. Since March of this year, many of our nonprofit organizations have shifted our fundraising strategies to adopt in this COVID-19 environment. If you want to track philanthropy's response to COVID-19, I encourage you to learn more about Candid's COVID-19 resources on the bit.ly link on the screen in front of you. If you go to candid.org, that's candid.org, and click on the link to explore resources, you will be taken to Candid's COVID-19 resource page. Today, we are talking to you out of Riverhead, New York, which is in the state of New York State. If you are following COVID relief funds and want to see them sorted by state, definitely the COVID-19 resource page will do that for you. You can also learn more about racial equity resources in America today by using Candid's racial equity resources. Take a moment, please, to jot down the URL in front of you. These are definitely two of the hottest issues these days that our online librarian has been receiving questions about. So we do respond to global events, and we also respond to domestic events. We'd like you to consider staying in touch with us as these events evolve, and we provide resources to you. You can find out more about our work on our main website, which is candid.org. That is candid.org. We are also on social media on many different platforms. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Our handle is @candid.org. That's @candid, candid.org. And please consider signing up for our free online fundraising resource newsletter. That link is in front of you. I also have a QR code on the screen. Feel free to take out your cell phone at this point and take a picture of the QR code. Staying in touch with us through subscribing to many of our free newsletters is a great way to remind yourself that Candid is here to help you succeed in your doing good. All right, so we are on Zoom today. Feel free to unmute yourselves and ask a question or use the chat, and Andrea Hill will be monitoring those channels. All right, Introduction to Foundation Directory Online. Most affectionately, I like to call Candid's main fundraising database FDO, and that is short for Foundation Directory Online. Foundation Directory Online is one of the most powerful tools that you can use today to identify private philanthropy, the grants they are making, as well as their application guidelines and who you need to contact. So this class is a terrific introduction to Foundation Directory Online. The Riverhead Free Library has two of Candid's databases, Foundation Directory Online Professional and Grants to Individuals Online. So these databases are very useful to you if you are looking for private grants to support your work in the nonprofit sector. For those of you who are artists, filmmakers, students, you will also enjoy using the database Grants to Individuals Online, which is also at the Riverhead Free Library, to look for scholarships and grants directly to yourself. So upon completion of today's session, we want you to have a pretty good idea of what Foundation Directory Online is. It's a wonderful database that is searchable. So you can actually fairly quickly sift through 227,000 active institutional grant makers to look for those grant makers who are going to be the best fits for funding your organization. We want to have a conversation today about identifying your needs before you dive in to using Foundation Directory Online. I think when you work with these funding databases, they're always more efficient if you have a clear sense of what you need money for and the size of the grants that you're looking for. There is plenty of help searching Foundation Directory Online and interpreting the results. The help is out there through a variety of resources. I love working inside the Riverhead Free Library, but if I can't spend a lot of time these days in our public libraries, I'm going to be working with our online librarians at Candid and with the librarians at the Riverhead Free Library. In fact, Riverhead Free Library is making available to you in Nassau and Suffolk counties a smaller version of Foundation Directory Online Professional. So using the Riverhead Free Library's resources, you can actually these days access Foundation Directory Online Essential from your home. So you're going to access that database through the Riverhead Free Library's website. So help is definitely available to you. We have online librarians that you can use through our websites and through the Riverhead Free Library website. We also have a way when you are using Foundation Directory Online at home to just click on Chat with an Expert and have our librarians work with you directly. So there is help. We want you to have a sense today of how you would use Foundation Directory Online to identify foundations and corporations who might fund one of your projects. And we are assuming that each of you on the call today has a program, has a project that you need to look for external private funding for this year. And you would also need to start looking for funding for your 2021 needs. So Foundation Directory Online is a fundraising database that focuses on private philanthropic resources, and we're going to use it to look for funding for our projects. You will also need, because you're using a database product that's literally sifting through 227,000 active grant makers, you'll need to read a lot of funder profiles. And as you read through the profiles of these private foundations and corporations, indeed, actually, the database also describes federal agency grants as well as the private resources. You'll have to read through these profiles that you develop and evaluate if these prospects are a good fit for your needs. So again, I feel it's so important before you dive into a database product for you to have a clear picture in your mind or on paper, you know, exactly what am I looking for. There are many, many options for accessing Foundation Directory Online. I did mention that we're so grateful to the Riverhead Free Library community because your local public library is making a version of our database available to you as remote access. And I think this is really a great thing. So thank you so much to Riverhead Free Library for placing Foundation Directory Online Essential on their website for you to use remotely, as most of us are still working remotely at this point in the year. So, show of hands. If I asked you, if we, in a classroom setting, how are you currently as nonprofit managers searching for your private funders now? I see some of you in the classroom are saying, oh, you're searching online. Perhaps you're using a search engine like Google to look for grants. Google is fine, but it's not a professional fundraising database as Foundation Directory Online is. It will take you just so far. Show of hands, some of the managers in the room today look for funders because you are subscribing to newsletters that collate RFPs. So an RFP is a request for proposal. Some foundations, when they create their funding programs, will issue a very public request for proposals that usually, goes out nationally. Sometimes it goes out internationally. But an RFP, or request for proposal, is a situation where a funder is highly publicizing a program and inviting you to read their guidelines and apply for the program. So on candid.org, which is Candid's main website, CAND.org, you will see in the Candid at a Glance area a newsletter called Philanthropy News Digest. That is actually our award-winning philanthropy newsletter, which I'm going to recommend that you subscribe to. On Philanthropy News Digest, there is an RFP area that you should be taking a look at periodically to see if there are any requests for proposals being published that fit your needs. When you are using Foundation Directory Online, whether it's the professional edition or the essential edition, as you read through the profile, you will note that the profile will include an RFP if we have it available on our website. Some people in the room today are saying, oh, they're using guidestar.org. That's GUIDESTAR.org to look for grants. This is a possibility, but again, not the most effective or efficient way to look for private funders. And by the way, guidestar.org is a Candid tool which delivers to you profiles of every single nonprofit organization in America today. And many of you in the classroom today are definitely using guidestar.org to tell your nonprofit story. So I'm going to highly recommend in another session that you take a look at guidestar.org and consider updating your nonprofit's profile. Now, those of you in the room today who said you were using guidestar.org to look for foundation grants were probably, savvy enough to know. And the nearly 1.7 million nonprofits in America today, there's a core group of just a tad under 120,000 active grant makers who are called private foundations. And these private foundations indeed are nonprofit organizations, just as many of you on the call today are representing nonprofit organizations. So I've never been able to really efficiently use guidestar.org to find funders to fund my organization, but guidestar.org is an excellent tool for you to use to tell your story as a nonprofit organization and to see what other nonprofit organizations are out there in the US today doing what you're doing. Now, some of us in the classroom today are telling me that they view IRS annual returns called 990s to look for private foundations to fund their work. So nonprofit tax returns are public documents. Private foundations are nonprofit organizations. So their IRS annual returns, which are called 990-PFs, PF standing for private foundation, they are public documents. In the old days, you might have viewed a 990-PF to look at a private foundation's grants list, which is part of the public side of their tax return. However, again, not the most effective or efficient way to look for private foundations to fund you these days. I'm going to make the case to you that Foundation Directory Online, which is a professional fundraising database, actually does much of your prospect research for you. You can use Foundation Directory Online to actually search through those tax returns. So let the database work for you. And that's why we're all together today to talk about how to use Foundation Directory Online to look for foundations, corporations, And, it does have federal agency grants in it as well. You might even see by using the database that you're in a position to get a grant from the federal government. So FDO, or Foundation Directory Online, is a fundraising database. Today, which is September 8th, 2020, the database has over 227,000 active private funders in it. It's got over 1 million recipients of grants in it. And every year we add 4 million grants into this database product. So you can search through the profiles that we craft. This is the beauty of using a database. You can see, who's got a private foundation in Suffolk County, New York, who's got a private foundation in Riverhead, New York, who's got a private foundation in that whole Long Island region, or New York City, New York State. The database also tracks philanthropy in other countries. So for those of you who are working on international projects, you should definitely be using our database products to see which funders are investing, not only in America, but overseas. And it has information about non-US foundations as well. So the database will allow you to search through these profiles. The database will allow you to do some very complicated searches in your efforts to tease out which foundations are in a better position to fund your organization's projects. You're going to have to read through very detailed profiles of the private foundations and the grants that they make. The database as well lists for you what we know about corporate funders. And I like to tell you this database is a living database because we literally update it every day, 7 days a week. So if I change a foundation profile today, you're actually going to see the updated profile tomorrow when you use the database. If I add a foundation to the database today, you will see it tomorrow when you are searching for your foundation prospects. It is going to provide you as well with our analysis about the last 5 years of grants that a funder paid out. And of course, it gives you names of people you need to be talking to, as well as phone numbers and email addresses. It uses what I'm going to call predict technology. So based on the search that you're typing into Foundation Directory Online, these days the database will also attempt to pull additional prospects for you. So you definitely want to work with a database, a professional database product these days, because you're going to have to run multiple searches to get the best possible prospect list for your organization. And for those of you on the call today and in the classroom setting who might have established your own family foundation, let's face it, most private foundations in America today are still family controlled. So when you look at their lists of board members, you can literally see the family connections. You too, as a philanthropist, can use Foundation Directory Online to see what other private foundations are doing with their grant support. So the database is extremely versatile. It's extremely searchable. And again, we're going to have a big thank you to the Riverhead Free Library, because during this time of COVID, Candid is working with the Riverhead Free Library to allow the library to provide you, the community, with remote access to Foundation Directory Online Essential, which is a abbreviated version of our main professional database. All right, where does the information in the database come from? If a grantmaker has a website, the database will tell you if they have a website. One of the reasons you do need to be using a professional database these days is out of those 227,000 active institutional grant makers in Foundation Directory Online as of September 8th, most of them don't have websites. Grant makers would prefer to spend their grant dollars, making grants to great nonprofit organizations, as opposed to spending their resources creating a website. So if the foundation has a website, Foundation Directory Online Professional will tell you it has a website. We also comb through annual reports coming out of the private foundation community. If a funder publishes an annual report, I'm always going to recommend that you read the annual report in addition to reading through our profile. Many foundations do publish formal application guidelines, so that is definitely one of our data sources. I mentioned Philanthropy News Digest earlier. We do comb through the philanthropic press looking for information about a funder's programs that we can feed into our database products. The database, in addition to private philanthropy, also tells you about grants being paid out by U.S. federal government agencies. I'll show you when we do the live search today. If you don't want the federal government's grants included in your searches, easy enough to set up the search so that it only focuses on private philanthropy. There are in total over 30 data sources that we use to compile these Foundation Directory Online profiles and to make them searchable to you. There are a growing number of grant makers who work with Candid directly, and these grant makers are reporting their grants to us directly instead of letting us, wait for the IRS to provide us with a tax return. So direct reporting is definitely a terrific initiative that we adds a great deal of value and currency to Foundation Directory Online. But, just keep in mind when you're reading through the Foundation Directory Online profiles that you've searched for, there are over 30 different data sources we use to create these profiles. So the data sources and our software does provide you with a tremendous amount of value added information about each of the foundations it covers. I mentioned earlier, to make the database more efficient for you, I'm going to recommend that you, jot down your notes on paper before you dive into a database. And I'd recommend this for any database product. We want you to be very clear about what your fundraising needs are before you use a database. You might have 10 programs that you're running, but when you're using Foundation Directory Online Professional and Foundation Directory Online Essential, you want to have this conversation in your head. Which of my programs are more fundable from the private foundation community? And we want you to also ask yourself 3 major questions. Population group wise, if this is appropriate to your work, who do you serve? Which population groups do your programs attempt to help? Children and youth? Economically disadvantaged people? Is it women and girls that your programs serve, or boys and men? Are your programs serving people with disabilities or people with visual impairments or cancer patients? Who do you serve? I also need to know geographically, where are your programs, where in the world are your programs, being conducted? Where are these people that you serve? Riverhead, New York is in Suffolk County. If you are running a nonprofit in Suffolk County, are the people you serve in Suffolk County, or are they in Chicago or Detroit or Miami, or are they in Nigeria or South Africa? So geographic focus is very, very important when you use Foundation Directory Online. We need to know what part of the world or which city, town, village, region of the world. We even have the data displayed for you by U.S. congressional district. We need to know, where are these people that you are serving? That's a geographic focus. Obviously, number 3, what are you doing for them? So if you have volunteer researchers helping you, They really need, when they're using the database, they need an accurate description of your projects, your programs. What are you doing for them? Is it after-school programs that involve a Suzuki violin program and musical work, or is it a STEM program that you're doing after school? So when you work with Foundation Directory Online these days, you'll see that the software prompts you to literally tell the computer what you need money for. So if you have a very clear picture about the population group you serve, where are these people geographically, and most importantly, what are you doing for them? What do you need money for? The system will work much more efficiently for you. So, this is what we mean by identifying your funding needs. Easy enough because you're using a database product today. It's easy enough to sift through over 227,000 active grant makers to find a great list of prospects. Not so easy to read through 50 profiles of these prospects that you found and figure out, after, let's say, reading through 50 foundation profiles, which of those foundations are the best matches for your particular organization. So as you read through these foundation profiles, I want you to be constantly evaluating prospects for whether or not they are strong fits for your organization or weak fits. If they are weak fits, you're going to put them in maybe your C list of prospects. If they are strong matches, they become your A list of prospects, or maybe your B or B plus list of prospects. So as you read through the foundation profiles, ask yourself 5 questions. Do you meet this private funder's requirements? And yes, sometimes private foundations are definitely going to give you very detailed eligibility requirements. Other times, you kind of have to tease that out of the profile. But you know what? Do you meet this funder's funding requirements? Is your mission or your project's goal a priority for this funder? So private foundations do have philanthropic goals that they wish to meet. And nonprofits help them meet those goals because you're working in specific areas of interest to that funder. So you want to be always thinking about your organization. Does your mission, does your project's goals, is it a priority for this foundation? And as you do the reading through each prospect's profile, this will become apparent to you. Also, how large are the grants? How big are the grants? Sometimes you're lucky and your boss, your director says to you very clearly that your organization is looking for a foundation who can fund to the tune of a grant check for $200,000. Other times your boss is going to say to you, it's okay. Let's put together a couple of foundations who can give us grants in the $5,000 range. But as you evaluate prospects for a strong or weak fit, it's always, a good idea to have a sense internally to your organization. How large of a grant are you looking for? Because the database will tell you an average grant size that each of these funders pays out. The database, even before you start reading the text part of the profile, will give you an infographic that tells you how large that funder's grants were in the last 5 years. Question 4 is really important. Does this private funder, does this corporation, does this private foundation support organizations like your own? So each of you should be able to give me a list of organizations that are working on similar activities. Do you know anybody at all associated with this private foundation? Does somebody on your board know a board member at a private foundation who can make that introduction? Do you know anybody in Long Island, nonprofit-wise, who can introduce you to their funder? Do you know any board members at private foundations, particularly with the larger foundations who hire Employees, do you know any of the employees who run programs at a private foundation? I would even extend your list of who you know to include all of the philanthropic advisors and accountants. You know, it's possible maybe you know the accountant to a foundation. So as you read through these foundation profiles, I want you to keep in mind some of these, and particularly these 5 questions. And, you know, this is fundraising. People give to people. So if you know somebody associated with a private foundation, that is going to get your phone calls, your emails. It'll open up doors for you. So definitely use your connections in the field to make these introductions. So, you know, again, it's September 8th. The database has over 227,000 active private institutional funders in it. And the database literally grows larger every single month. You're going to be doing a lot of reading. And I am going to recommend to you that when you conduct your searches, you run multiple searches on Foundation Directory Online, that you run many searches on Foundation Directory Online on the same topic. You'll see over time that you will always get better search results if you take a look at various search strategies for the same issue. There are many, many ways to get help from Candid. There are many, many ways to get help from the Riverhead Free Library. So I want to just quickly, point out some of the resources to you. Candid.org, that's CANDID.org, is our main website. And we have many websites. But Candid.org, in particular, gives you access not only to, Philanthropy News Digest, but when we think about this database, Foundation Directory Online, there is a blog. So periodically, I look at the articles that we publish on the ION FDO blog to get a sense of how researchers are using the database. I look at the ION FDO blog to get, that's one of the ways I look at some of the deep dives into what the database can do. You can, definitely go on to Candid.org. In the Candid at a Glance part of our website, you'll see a link to Foundation Directory Online. That's where you're going to go if you're interested in subscribing yourself or for your organization to this database. There are several different subscription levels to it, and that you can access through Candid.org. We have a second website called Candid Learning, and that URL is learning.candid.org. Candid Learning is a phenomenal website that you can use to self-educate yourself on topics concerning fundraising and nonprofit management. You can even use Candid Learning to find out how to be a better philanthropist. In the context of today's class, however, Foundation Directory Online, I want you to remember that you can go to learning.candid.org and connect to the Ask Us feature. Use the Ask Us feature. That will connect you to Candid's online librarians who, would love to have a conversation with you about your fundraising needs, or a conversation with you on what you're seeing or not seeing in the database. I mentioned Riverhead Free Library today, which is hosting today's session. We have over 400 libraries, community foundations, and nonprofit resource centers that we work very closely with to provide their local communities with free access to Foundation Directory Online. So you can use Candid Learning to click on Find Us to find a Candid partner in your community. And most certainly you are using Candid Learning to find out about training opportunities. And we've moved all of our training to a virtual environment this year. Candid Learning has many wonderful free tools that you can use to develop your fundraising. It's got a tremendous number of resources, and you can use Candid Learning to take some of the click-through tutorials on, how to write proposals, how to do fundraising planning. So learning on your own time is a great reason to use Candid Learning. There's even an ebook program there. So you can participate in our free ebook program and borrow books on fundraising. I'm going to assume that everybody in the room today is an expert on YouTube. So Foundation Directory Online indeed has its own YouTube channel. where we have many short videos that you can watch and that are tailored to various aspects of the database. So if YouTube videos is your thing, definitely check out Foundation Directory Online's YouTube channel. Now, for the data people on the call today, for the librarians on the call today. So Foundation Directory Online provides you with a very easy way to sift through, to search through over 227,000 active grant makers. For those grant makers who are not only investing grants in your geographic area, but are investing grants in the population groups you serve and in the topics that your projects are all about. We have a classification system that we use called the Philanthropy Classification System. So if you're ever wondering about what Candid's definition of a senior citizen is versus a person who is in the aging or elderly category, go to our taxonomy, Philanthropy Classification System, to get the definitions. Beginners are probably not going to need to use the Philanthropy Classification System, but I've listed this on the call today. This is our taxonomy that we use to classify grants and funder information. There is a back-end classification system that we use that you can go to for a kind of deep dive on each of the terms that you see in our database products. And lastly, the most important thing for folks out in Riverhead, New York today is that your main public library, the Riverhead Free Library, has been working very closely with Candid for many, many years. The website at the Riverhead Free Library is riverheadlibrary.org. And to gain access, at least through the end of December this year, to gain access remotely to Foundation Directory Online, you're going to be on the Riverhead Public Library's website. Look for the drop-down that says Services for Every Age. Select Adult and Information Services, and then follow the link to Foundation Center at Home. Follow those links. The database will open up for you fairly easily through the Riverhead Library's website. So, hopefully I've made the pitch there. There's plenty of ways to get help from Candid, plenty of ways to get help from the Riverhead Free Library staff, and you do have remote access to this database. So I don't want you to feel concerned and that you can't get into a public library for more than 30 minutes these days. Your public library is making our database available to you remotely. So you do have 24/7 access to it. All right, so what you're looking at now on the screen is what I'm going to call the landing page for Foundation Directory Online. And this is where we've made it very, very easy for you to create, to search for, foundations who will fund your projects. So this landing page has a search box. Describe what you are trying to fund. There are some examples that give you a sense of what we're looking for. In this case, the person using Foundation Directory Online, typed in Health After School Program for Low-Income Children in Atlanta, Georgia. So remember I said to you, what population group are you serving? Where do they live? And what are you doing for them? This search strategy that was popped in here definitely has a geographic area, definitely's got a population group. They're children, and these kids don't have a lot of money. And the person tried to describe the program. It's some kind of healthy after-school program for low-income children in Atlanta, Georgia. So, you're just going to type in what you describe, what you need funding for. You're going to place your cursor on search, the search box, and hit it. And this then will send the back-end software to Foundation Directory Online, kind of sifting through it internally, looking for your prospects. By the way, remember I said Foundation Directory Online includes not only the private foundation and corporate grants, it also includes U.S. federal agency grants. If you do not want the federal government included in your search results, you can just click on that checkbox there on your landing page, and the software, won't search through government grants for you. So best way to do it is try a couple of different sentences, but do include a geographic region. So for Riverhead Free Library, you might do one search that says Riverhead, New York. You might do another search that focuses on Suffolk County. You might try a Long Island regional approach. You might even try like a New York City metropolitan area approach, and you should definitely at one point tell the software to sift through, all the possibilities in the state of New York as well. It doesn't mean that it's going to be looking for funders who are just based in New York, but it's going to look for funders who might be in California or Florida or New Jersey who are investing in your particular geographic area. But the important thing to remember is after you've typed a sentence in describing what you were trying to fund, you got to remember to click search, because that's going to, start the search strategy there. So, we typed in that health after school program for low-income children in Atlanta, Georgia. And the next screen that you see is going to literally give you the list of the grant makers. And, you can click on each grant maker name to read the profiles, but it will also show you how the software is interpreting your search. So that sentence was health after school program for low-income children in Atlanta, Georgia. The software read it and it just looked for every single grant maker in the database that focused on child welfare. It looked at that word after school and it changed it to out of school learning, which is, the more professional way we say after school these days. It also went through every single grant pertaining to health, and it did get the geographic region correctly. Atlanta in the state of Georgia, and it's also reminding you Georgia is in the United States. This database is indeed international. It's going to draw down to every city, town, village here in America, as well as other countries. So it's always going to remind you, whether or not that state is in the US or somewhere else. So describe what you are looking to fund. It's searching through as a subject, every grant maker who pays out for child welfare, out of school learning, and health. There is, please note, this bright blue option, match any. So it's looking at A or B or C. It's going to make the search broad the first time out. But if you want those funder profiles to have child welfare and out of school learning and health as a topic or subject they fund, you can literally change match any to match all, and it will connect it to where the money is being used. So, in this case, I really don't care where the funder is physically located, but I want to make sure that I've told the computer that the money is going into Atlanta, Georgia. You can also, click search right there. So, in this case, keeping to the child welfare, out of school learning, health, Atlanta, Georgia, your job now is to literally sift through 2,783 grant makers. You can, tweak your search at this point. I usually don't have time to go through over 2,000 grant maker records. So I would, most likely opt to tweak my search so I have fewer records to read through. Or you could just keep clicking on these bars and then go directly to the profile. But this is what a list view looks like. The software is when you start clicking through these group of search results, you can sort each of the columns. So if you like to read your search results alphabetically, just click on grant maker. It's going to sort them in alphabetical order. It's going to tell you what city, state, and country your grant maker is located in. It's going to give you total assets and total giving off of their last tax return. In this case, I left the federal government in here. So these US government agencies are not going to have assets and total giving. That's why you see the 0 there. But most importantly, when you're looking at these lists, before you read them, take a look at the column amount funded. This is literally the software telling you, attempting to tell you, that the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta has put this dollar amount funded into Atlanta, Georgia for those topics, and it also gives you a grant count or number of grants. Just a little caveat here. When you're at home using Foundation Directory Online Essential, which is the remote access version of Foundation Directory Online Professional, you actually won't be seeing the grant descriptions or the descriptions of the recipients, but you do have these full foundation profiles to read through. Now, a lot of times what I do is I click and sort my search results by amount funded, and I usually like to look at the funders who've invested the most amount of money for my topics in the geographic area that my project is operating in. You know, other people like to sort their grantmaker list by total assets or total giving. It's really up to you, but this column is very, very important, the amount funded, because the software is just like tallied up grant dollars for you. And if you want to look at your grant count by 100 records at a time instead of like 5 at a time, I will click View All to look at my results 100 at a time. I actually think this is probably not the best search example because the number of grant makers there is very large. You would want to narrow that pool down. But when you're in the View All setting, you can, print, you can export, you can email them. All right, so this page here, this is just a page here that shows you that those grant counts can drop really, really quickly. And when we say grant count, we're literally talking about the number of grants paid out by the grant maker. So, view this as the number of grants or like the number of checks they literally wrote. So when we're in the view list portion, at one point you've got to start reading through the profiles to determine if the funder is a good fit. Is this a weak funder for your nonprofit or a strong funder? You won't know that until you literally click on the grant maker's name and start reading through the profile. So this is real important. When you see a grant maker's name in blue, you can click on it at home and then you will be taken to the profile. Those profiles have a lot of information in them. They do come with a menu that helps you cut through the profiles very quickly. If you don't know who this funder is, you'd probably click About. The screen that you're looking at now focuses on one of the more popular parts of a grant maker profile, and that is the how do I apply? That's applications, requests for proposals, and giving limitations. So you want to make sure you click on this applications link part of the profile to at least get a sense of timing. Do they have deadlines? I mean, it's October, so if a funder has a fiscal year that ends December, at this point in the year, I'm already like, oh, is there anybody who's got a November deadline that I can apply to? Also in the application process part of the profile, you'll see an area that we're going to call giving limitations. So it's important to read each part of the profile carefully. So in this case, under giving limitations, assuming you've read through the application process for Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and you're still like, oh, I still think they're a strong fit for us. You want to make sure you read everything in this application process part. Giving limitations. So they're telling you Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation gives nationally and internationally. It also tells you what they don't give support for. No support for projects addressing A, B, and C. No direct donations or grants to individuals. No funding for building or capital projects. So this is highlighted on your screen here to give you a sense of the amount of detail that you would normally find in an application part of the record. The top of the profile gives you data visualizations, charts, maps that attempt to give you a quick visual look at what's happening with the grant maker. So, for Bill and Melinda Gates, these trend charts, the software just analyzed the last 5 years of grants paid out by Bill and Melinda Gates, and they're telling you what is being funded, what has been funded in the last 5 years. So in Bill and Melinda Gates's example, the top 3 topics they funded were health, international relations and education, Fourth largest topic or subject being funded was community and economic development. Agriculture, fishing, and forestry was the fifth. And then you can see here giving amounts. So again, when you're reading through these profiles, there's a lot of information provided to you. The first part of the profile takes the last 5 years of funders' grants and provides you with trend charts. So, if I'm like an art person looking for a grant from Bill and Melinda Gates, I don't see arts here at all. I'm already thinking, even before I move on to the rest of the profile, Bill and Melinda may be a weak fit for my art project. Also, this is really important. So we're in the state of New York today. And this is good because it looks like in the last 5 years, the state of New York is in heavy shading. If you lightly depress your cursor here, it will tell you how much money and how many grants went into the state of New York. Also, it looks like, yeah, they're giving to California, not as much money going to Maine, some money going to Florida. Now, remember what's going to help you determine if a funder is a weak fit, strong fit for you is, whether or not when you came into the database, you had a sense of how big a grant are you looking to ask Bill and Melinda Gates for? So this trend chart, how big are the grants in the last 5 years, tells me not a lot of their grants were in this smaller amount of $0 to $4,999, but a lot of their grants were in the 100K to 500K range, and there were a substantial number of grants, $1 million and above. Yeah. If you got one check for $1 million, you could make a lot of sustainable change in your world. So I always tell folks to look at the trend charts first, pause and look at the trend charts before you start reading the rest of the profile. The other thing that's happening at the top of these profiles, well, okay, this is good. We're telling you that Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is based in Seattle, Washington. But, they're all the way on one side of the country, but they are investing in New York. They've got a website, which is fantastic. If a funder has a website, of course, you'll spend a lot of time on their website. So we do attempt to tell you, if you're dealing with a foundation that has a website, this is the LinkedIn symbol. So if you have a lot of folks in your LinkedIn network, when you're using this product, you might want to turn open up your LinkedIn account while you're using it, because we're literally, if I clicked on who's who, I'd go to the list of officers, I'd go to the list of employees, and we are attempting to tell you who at Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is on LinkedIn. You might not know them, but maybe somebody in your LinkedIn network can connect you to one of the Bill and Melinda Gates board members or employees. This contact information is a really quick link to their address, phone number, how to access them. Now, be aware something else is happening here at the top of your profile. Is this a good prospect? Assess this grant maker. This is a questionnaire you can take that will ask you questions about Bill and Melinda Gates that will help you determine if they are a good prospect for you. So even before you start reading the profile, there's a lot happening at the top of those records. Do take a moment when you're using Foundation Directory Online to look at the trend charts and see how we've analyzed the last 5 years of their grants. Elsewhere here, if you don't know who they are, of course, you're going to click under About Them to get their history and background. If you need information on what they're funding subject-wise and where in the world it's going, of course, you'll click on Funding Interest. This is an example of what happens when you click on Who's Who. You're going to get the list of officers, and it looks like this fellow here, William H. Bill Gates III, is definitely on LinkedIn. So you should know if you know Bill Gates III. We probably don't know him, closely. But maybe somebody in your network can introduce you to Bill Gates. And that's why, we are continuing our work to make Foundation Directory Online more useful to you by, going through the trustees and the employee lists and connecting them to their LinkedIn accounts. Usually, I'm a librarian by training. I might not know a lot of these officers and trustees at a foundation, but if you're dealing with a larger funder and they have staff, Now, it's possible that you actually know as somebody who works at one of these foundations. And again, if you know somebody, it is easier to get your foot in the door. Typically, when you click under About, you get a purpose and activity statement. In the funder's own words, what they feel their mission is all about. So I do take a moment to read through a funder's purpose and activity statement, because that certainly does help me decide if it's a weak fit or a strong fit. I look at the background. A lot of times I want to know, where did they start? Where did the money come from? And most importantly, when you're in the About Us area of the profile, if they have program areas, in this case, I see 6 in parens, that means that Bill and Melinda Gates has 6 formal program areas. If I see a number here, I'm definitely going to click the program area and start reading through their formal program areas. And in the back of my head, I'm thinking, which of their program areas am I eligible for? Now, just a little note here. I did mention Predict Technology at the top of the hour. Other funders to consider. This is Predict Technology based on the search that you type into Foundation Directory Online. The software will try to find you other funders. Application information, that first slide I showed you focused on their giving limitations, but this is very clear. Bill and Melinda Gates, in this case, they're being very clear about how to make the initial approach, about when their deadlines are, about what you have to submit, and then there's this additional details on how to apply. So communications is just part of the record, so you can get a sense of how the funder is using social media to communicate with the public. So this is, you may not get to this part, but it is there. These profiles do contain an immense amount of detail about each of these funders. So again, we're going to leave you with here that landing page for Foundation Directory Online. We haven't even looked at the advanced ways you can set your search up in the beginning. The best way to work with Foundation Directory Online is to just describe what you were trying to fund. Is it a ballet school in New York City you need money for? An animal shelter in Portland, Maine? A food pantry in Dallas? Think about geography. Where's the grant support needed? And, I think simpler is better. Use simple words to describe what you need money for. I'll tell you, I usually include the federal government in my grants, but if you don't want them included in your searches, just, delete them right there. Okay, and by the way, one last thing. If you're lucky enough and some colleague says to you, you know what, I think you should look at Gates. I think you should look at Lenny Riggio. He's Mr. Barnes & Noble. If somebody gives you the name of a foundation, you can, when you're using FDO, just click right here, search by organization, pop the name in, and you're usually looking for grant makers, and then just select it. Take a look at all of your choices and just select the name of the grant maker you're looking for, click search, run it, and the profile will pop up. So many different ways to search for data. Again, YouTube has many, many useful videos that we create to support Foundation Directory Online. If you are using Essential right now, between now and the end of the year, just assuming, I know you can make appointments to spend 30 minutes inside Riverhead Free Library, but it's not really a lot of time to work with the professional version. So you will be using Foundation Directory Online Essential between now and the end of the year. There is even a YouTube video you can watch. If you just type in searching FDO Essential, there's a couple of videos developed by our partner libraries on how to work with this particular product. So before I do a quick demo for you, where can you access Foundation Directory Online? First of all, Candid, we are so grateful to the Riverhead Free Library and the Riverhead, New York community for supporting us. Your Riverhead Free Library is an official funding information network partner to Candid. Inside the library gives you access to the professional version of Foundation Directory Online Professional and a second database called Grants to Individuals Online. Again, we're working at a time of the COVID crisis, and the Riverhead Free Library is making available to you through the end of the year remote access to Foundation Directory Online Essential. We have over 400 funding information network partners all around the world. These are usually libraries, community foundations, and nonprofit resource centers that make our databases available free of charge to the local community. Lastly, where can you access Foundation Directory Online? Foundation Directory Online, you can, pull out a credit card and subscribe to it if you'd like to. So their website is fdo.org, or you can get to the subscription prices through candid.org. Use the at a glance feature and just select Foundation Directory Online Professional. I'm going to quickly I think I have a little bit of time to do a quick search. You are in Suffolk County today. So your favorite library, hopefully, is the riverheadlibrary.org. I'm going to stop the search and kind of bring us all back, share my screen again to make sure we are all looking at the riverheadlibrary.org website. To get to Foundation Directory Online, you're going to click on Services for Every Age. You will then select Adult and Information Services. By the way, you can get to their online team here, but I see at the bottom of this list, Foundation Center at Home. You click on that selection. Hard click now. The next screen that opens up, temporary access to the database at home. I'm reading, please use Foundation Center from Home link. Clicking. It's churning away now on my laptop. Come on, and the database should open up, which, by the way, I had it opened up on my screen before. So I'm now on the Riverhead Free Libraries subscription to Foundation Directory Online Essential. If I click Chat with an Expert here or Chat in the upper right-hand corner, I can connect to one of Candid's online librarians. Remember that landing page where I said, just describe what you need funding for? It's right here. You can use the help files and go through the Foundation Directory Online, help manuals up here under help as well. But to use this, we're simply saying arts in Riverhead, New York. Simple. I could have said museums. I could have said aquariums in Riverhead, New York. But I've got a geographic area here. I've got a topic. I went broad this time. I could have said maybe, art museums or arts education. I went broad here. Now, what's happening is Arts in Riverhead, New York, it found me 6 grant makers, and it actually interpreted arts very broadly. It's arts education, arts museum, art councils, art and music therapy, performing arts, art history, public arts zoos. By the way, if I don't want zoo in here, there's a little X on the screen. I can just click that and the software will remove zoos from my search. So I just removed zoos, but also it's got my geographic area right. It's focusing just on Riverhead, which was a very narrow way to look at this. But here are all my subjects that it just searched as a result of just typing in arts in Riverhead, New York. It's adding support strategies to it. But here are my 6 grantmaker records. Amount funded, so Bank of America, which is headquartered in Charlotte, North Carolina, put the most amount of money into Riverhead, New York. 5 grants totaling over $220,000. There's a group called the Corey Foundation, which is based in Riverhead, 3 grants totaling $34,000. So as you use this product at home, you'll click under the grant maker name, and here is the profile. If I know a lot of people, I'm probably going to click on Who's Who. If I just want to know where are they located, I'm going to click under contact information. But here's the analysis. The software just looked at the last 5 years of grants that the Corey Foundation, which is based in Riverhead, New York, paid out. Most of their grant money in the last 5 years is going to New York. Health, #1 topic, but this is great. Arts and culture is the 2nd highest topic. And we have a wide range here in terms of how big the grants are. Many of their grants are like 0 to 25K. And you've got like a handful here that are quite large. So you look at those trend charts. Here are the funding interests. Where do they fund? Where is the money used? Okay, it says New York and Italy, but clearly when we look at this trend chart, the last 5 years, where's the money going? I do see other states located there. What population groups do they seek to help? Right here. what subject areas do they fund? And, I typed in arts in Riverhead, New York, but they're funding a lot more than arts. But, museum and music, opera, performing arts, that's definitely arts, arts and culture, and art services is definitely useful. A little bit about them, not much here, but they've been around since 1998. Other funders to consider. Maybe I've got some possibilities here. How do I apply? Ooh, they only contribute to pre-selected. They do give in New York no grants to individuals. So I've got to work at I'm going to check out the board. Do I know Michael or Emile? Are there living donors? The donors are living. Do I know the Coreys? That might help me get to be one of those pre-selected. How do I contact them? I've got an address right there. I got a phone number right there as well. Plus, I, by the way, have their tax returns going back to 2018 if I really wanted to do a deep dive into the Coreys. So, again, when you're using this product, click on chat to get help from us. Try a couple of different searches. Ooh, search by organization name. If somebody feeds you the name of the search topic, it's right here. Better still, if you have a list of names and you're not sure if people sit on boards of foundation, that might work searching by person. But you know what? Leonard Riggio, he's Mr. Barnes & Noble, has a family foundation. So I just search by organization name. You can just click there and go to the profile now. So you're going to run multiple searches on this database. Riggio, there's no website, but we just did the analysis of the last 5 years of their grants. Arts is number 2. They gave, big time to New York. Grants have a wide range. Many of the grants tend to be below 50,000. What about them? Children, health, hospitals, background. Okay, he's an entrepreneur. Other funders consider. How do I apply? Okay, pre-selected. So this is not an unsurmountable obstacle to you. We need to use our networking skills. So do I know Leonard or Louise? Do I know Dr. Parrott? We're looking at living donors here. How do these folks communicate? So they're a little quiet. They're not really on social media. Got a quick contact information there. So the more people you know, the easier it is to use this product. And again, I'm going to click back on the landing page. You've got to try a couple of different searches where you just tell the software what you need grants for. You might start out by saying arts in Riverhead, then you'll say arts in Suffolk County, then you'll say arts in Long Island, and then you're going to say arts in New York State and study the results to get to the better prospects that way. And again, there's always ways you can get help from Candid, and there are always ways you can get help from the staff at the Riverhead Free Library. I'm just going to quickly end today. I'm going to go back to these PowerPoint slides. So that was just a quick look-see at the Riverhead Free Library's account for FDO Accessional. I want you as an exercise to kind of log into it yourself from Suffolk County and play with it today. We will have our online librarians, working this week. You can ask them your questions, but easy enough for you to access Foundation Directory Online as we're all in this remote state this year. There's a quick guide that you can read in the help files when you've logged into Riverhead Free Library's subscription. Lots of help articles, lots of YouTube videos. And if you need to talk to us, there are librarians. So you have the staff at the Riverhead Free Library. Again, a big shout out to Cher Armstrong and to Andrea Hill today for hosting today's session. Lots of wonderful people at the Riverhead Free Library for you to work with. Candid has online librarians who would love to be chatting and emailing with you about these fundraising searches as well. So you can get person-to-person assistance, and there's plenty of self-serve resources that you can use. And then, quick reminder, as you read through those profiles, ask yourself, do I meet the funder's requirements? Is it a strong fit or a weak fit for my organization? Is your mission or project's goal a priority for this funder? the profile does reveal that. And in particular, do pay attention to the trend charts and the application process, as well as their giving limitations. How big are their grants? That is, the trend chart will tell you that. Does this funder support organizations like mine? Do I know anybody associated with this funder? So this is fundraising land, this is philanthropy. You do have to make use of all of your networking skills, particularly since I think in Long Island, many more of the funders are going to say we contribute to pre-selected. So, and that's where your networking skills come in. If the profile shows there's a strong fit, you've got to call and pitch your project. Now, we are at Riverhead Free Library again on October 15th. We're going to do a 90-minute class called Introduction to Finding Grants. So I hope to meet everybody on October 15th. But a little recap here, there are many, many resources available to you to learn about how to use Foundation Directory Online. And you do have remote access to it through the end of the year through the Riverhead Free Library. So there's candid.org, the Eye on FDO blog. There's Candid Learning as a website. That's learning.candid.org. You will use Candid Learning to connect to our online librarians at Candid, to find our partners, and you're going to use Candid Learning to learn about all aspects of fundraising in your own time. YouTube, again, Foundation Directory Online has its own YouTube channel. For the data people on the call today, if you're interested in the taxonomy we use, you've got the URL listed here, taxonomy.candid.org. And a big shout out and thank you to the Riverhead Free Library for hosting our databases and today's class out on Long Island. And again, Riverhead Free Library is making Foundation Directory Online Essential available to you as remote access. I'm going to leave you right now on this screen. You do have time to take out your cell phone and take a picture of this URL. We are meeting again through the Riverhead Free Library on Thursday, October 15th for a 90-minute class called Introduction to Finding Grants. And that is going to be a deep dive into the world of philanthropy. So I hope you do have some time in September to start playing with Foundation Directory Online Essential before we meet again on Thursday, October 15th from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time at Riverhead Library to learn about how to find grants. I'm going to also do a little shout out here for the Candid Learning website. Candid has many, many virtual training opportunities available to you. So please take some time this month to check out learning.candid.org. Look at the training calendars, and it's possible you should find a free training program that we're offering in the month of September that'll help you out before we get to the October 15th Introduction to Finding Grants class. So thank you so much for participating in our Introduction to Finding Grants virtual training today, which is being brought to you by Andrea Hill and Cher Armstrong at the Riverhead Free Library. Thank you. I will see you on October 15th through the Riverhead Free Library at Introduction to Finding Grants, which will be a virtual class. Thank you. Do remember to talk to the Candid online librarians through learning.candid.org. And good luck with your Foundation Directory Online searches. Your homework assignment is to use the database remotely through the Riverhead Free Library this month, and then we will meet again in October to talk about the world of philanthropy and how to find grants. Thank you so much. Bye.